the submission of Europe, of Japan, of the Muslim world, of Malaysia, and the rest of the world to the rule of Israel. And so finally, to allow Dajjal to complete his mission of impersonating the Messiah. Dajjal, the false Messiah, impersonating Nabi Isa alayhi salam, the true Messiah. These are the basic objectives of the war at the level of microanalysis. When the big war takes place, all of this is to prepare for the big war, Israel's big war. It will witness dramatic territorial expansion of the state. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying this is what they want to do. When it does happen, then the analysis will be correct. So we don't have to sit down with our arms folded and say there's nothing we can do. Don't come with that question at the end of the lecture. And say this is what they want to do. And this is what they do, then I'm correct. It's good to know what they want to do. That is not useless information. Israel's big war of territorial expansion, why? Why does Dajjal have to do that? Because to convince the Jews he has to deliver a holy land as defined territorially in the Torah. The holy land as defined territorially in the Torah extends from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. When you go to the Quran and you know how to go to the Quran, then you see that the Quran proves that is false in the Torah. But when the state of Israel cares about the river of Egypt, they're not thinking so much about the Nile, they're more thinking about Israeli military control over the Suez Canal. That's the immediate river of Egypt. And when Israel hears about the river Euphrates, Israel is thinking about control over the oil. And so the big war will have these as its immediate objectives: control over the oil, and control over the Suez Canal, and control of their territory in between. When they have control of that territory, then perhaps the Palestinians will be exported out of the Holy Land, out of the present state of Palestine. I may be wrong. They may do it even before that. They may do it now. But the Palestinians are going to be out. When that big war takes place, and Israel takes control of the oil and the Suez Canal, then you have Europe like this. Because the Suez Canal is a strategic link for business and for trade. And Europe cannot do with all the oil. Japan cannot do with all the oil. Israel now controls the oil. Can Europe force Israel to withdraw? No. Because the United States and Britain will be standing behind Israel. Why? Why this mysterious link between the United States and Britain and Israel? Only the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad can explain it. Nothing else. You know why Australia is in it? Because Australia's ruling class are British. That's why. Why is New Zealand not in it? Because the ruling class in New Zealand are Scottish and Irish. And they don't like the British. The United States and Britain stands firmly behind Israel. Nelson Mandela said, well, I was in Cape Town when Nelson Mandela delivered that lecture. He said that the Prime Minister of Britain is no longer the Prime Minister of Britain, he's now the Foreign Minister of the United States. You remember? I said he could have gone on to say something more. That Tony Blair and George Bush have now become the shoeshine boys of the State of Israel. They stand behind Israel. And therefore neither Europe, nor Europe plus Japan, nor Europe plus Japan plus the rest of the world, plus the non-aligned movement can force Israel to withdraw. They may go to the United Nations, if the United Nations is still there, to try to have what is known as the Uniting for Peace resolution as they had in 1956. And if the United Nations General Assembly passes that Uniting for Peace resolution, all that the United States has to do is to withdraw from the UN. And when the United States withdraws from the UN will have to pack its suitcases and leave New York. That is the end of the United Nations. Israel now becomes the ruling state in the world when that big war takes place. The war on Iraq is meant to facilitate the emergence of Israel as the ruling state in the world. This war, this big war, however, cannot be waged by Israel to become the ruling state and yet appear to be a war of naked aggression. No. Well then, how can Israel wage a big war and yet not appear to be waging a war of naked aggression? The answer is the United States has to attack Afghanistan and then attack brutally Afghanistan and then attack Iraq brutally, with large numbers of people being killed, horrendous suffering. But it must take place when Israel has already done her dirty work in the Holy Land on the Palestinians, brutalizing them, massacre after massacre. And the Palestinians are calling unto the heavens for help. And all of these images of houses being demolished, people being killed, and children being killed, and all of these images must reach the Arab television screens. So the Arabs can be driven to frenzy and to rage, boiling point. You think Saudi television will carry it? Or Egyptian television? Or Jordanian television? No, they'll be too scared. So now the Israeli Mossad and the CIA will have to create a new television station. Of course, it must be an Arab television station. And that television station must do the work of conveying all of these images to all the Arabs. So they're driven to raid. Of course, this television station must also have a direct line to Osama bin Laden. Direct. Direct line to Osama bin Laden. So when I see now a new interview from Osama, I read it now because I know it was written by the Israeli Mossad. That has already been accomplished. The Arab masses have today reached the level of rage, boiling rage. Then the attack on Iraq takes place. And it must be a horrendous attack. There must be a large number of deaths. There must be a claim that Saddam is using chemical and biological weapons. You know, the United States knows exactly what biological weapons he has. Yeah. And the United States knows exactly how much, because the United States gave them to him. These massive and violent demonstrations are needed to bring down governments, particularly pro-American governments. And they must then be replaced by anti-American and anti-Israeli and pro-Islamic governments. And only then can CNN and company, and all the media and all the newspapers, New York Times and London Times, and Times of India, and Straits Times, and New Straits Times, now give the picture of Israel to be a state which is in mortal danger. The wall of Islam is rising up to slaughter the Jews. When that happens, then public opinion will be convinced that Israel is only trying to defend itself. Then Israel can wage a big war without appearing to be a war of naked aggression. To bring our lecture to a close, we're already 5 minutes over time. When Israel becomes the ruling state in the world, then she'll rule the world for a day which is like a week. How long would that be? Well, calculate. That was a time of greatest oppression for Muslims. Israel cannot be the ruling state in the world and you have the United Nations in New York. So something has to replace the United Nations. This is your homework.